to a user or to a program, you have an expiry date, the lifetime of an STS token. Lifetime can be as minimum as 50, as maximum as 36 hours. After that, it expires. So the a temporary security tokens is to allow individual or an application to log into your AWS account on a temporary basis and to you control your AWS account, right? So again, if you see here, the roles and security tokens security tokens enable a number of use cases. Firstly, if I see Amazon EC2 role, it's a role basically, granting permissions to applications running on AWS EC2 instances. Cross account access, it is granting permissions to users from other AWS account, uh, whether you control those accounts or somebody else control those accounts, but you can have those cross AWS account permissions given. And then federation is like granting permissions to users authenticated by an external platform. It's not your Active Directory that authenticated the user, but it is an external platform. As to demonstrate the scope of the users, you can see the root user, we cannot limit the permissions and it is permanent. IAM user, access is controlled by policies, and you can remove the IAM policy, or you can add the policies, you can customize the policies. And if IAM user that you created wanted to control the IAM policies also, you have to give a role called IAM administrator, and it can be removed also. Otherwise, root user is the default user who can control your IAM policies and access. And roles and some temporary security tokens, access controlled by policy and temporary security tokens expires after a specific period of time, right? So these are the three different type of principles that can access your AWS account, and you can see what they can do, how they can be controlled. And then authentication and authorization is something that you already know. Authentication is what? There are three ways. Firstly, authentication is what? You are giving, you are validating yourself, right? You're authenticating yourself. It's like authenticating your ATM PIN card. You give a right PIN, you're authenticated. You give a wrong PIN, sorry, you give a wrong PIN, you will not be allowed to, you're not allowed to control the account. The same way, in ATM, you just have one way to authenticate yourself, just the PIN number. Here I've got three different ways to authenticate yourself. The first one is username and password. Okay, so when you create a user, IAM user in our IAM management console, 2 minutes guys, I'll be back. I'm sorry, I was actually suffering from bad nose. Okay, so there are three ways that you can authenticate yourself. Like I said, the first thing is username and password. So you know that the IAM principal can be a user or a program. So or an application. So when you create an IAM user, you can create, you give the username and you give the password, and you can mandate the user to change the password, or you can let them log in with the same password that you hard coded. Okay, the second thing is access key. So an access key is actually a combination of access key ID and the secret key ID. Access key ID is about 20 characters, and secret key ID is about 40 characters. Okay, so when you create the access key ID, it is similar to the KMS service. The key file that you download, right, when you launch an EC2 instance, it is similar to that. A secret key can be downloaded when you create it, but later, right? But later, if you, let's say somehow you downloaded it and you missed it, and somehow if you wanted to download, I mean, if you wanted to use the same secret key and you find that it is not available, there is no other way you can actually download it from anywhere. So remember that. So access key is actually a combination of your private, is actually a combination of your access key ID and the secret key ID, which is 20 character and the 40 character. When you create your access key ID, it will ask you to download the key file, and then somehow if you kind of miss it, and then there is no way that you can get it back and you log into the services. A third way is access key plus session token. So we all know that we work with RSA tokens when you have to log into the office environment over the VPN. So this is an additional layer of security wherein apart from your access key ID, that is key ID plus secret key ID, you are also asked to provide the temporary security token that is generated in the device, a soft device or the hard device that is with you. Okay. So the other thing that you need to remember is it is important to note that when an IAM user is created, it has neither access key nor password, and IAM administrator can set up either or both. It's completely the IAM administrator control that he can just attach the password to the user, or the access key secret key to the user, or both to the user. It's completely with the IAM administrator or the root user. Okay. So this is how it happens. The first thing, you give the username and the password, the first way. The second way is access key and the secret key that you give to authenticate yourself. Third way is access key ID, secret key ID, and the session ID. These are the three different inputs that you give to log into the AWS services. Three different ways that you can authenticate yourself. Now let's see the authorization. Okay, and this is also a known topic. Authorization is like, once you're authorized, what are you allowed to perform? So with your ATM pins, ATM cards, there is no such role-based access control. If you have the pin, that's it. You have the access to all possible actions in ATM. You can just make the income statement. You can withdraw the money, or you can deposit the money. If you can visit the deposit machines, you can change the pin. So it's like the same access, no matter the pin, the card is with you with somebody else. As long as you are using the right pin, it is the same access. But when you see the enterprise class applications, there must be a role-based access available. Okay. Or else there will be a problem if I start allowing everybody and all of them can control all AWS services. That's when the problem is. Okay. So you have the role-based access control here. After IAM has authenticated a principal, it must then manage the access of that principal to protect your AWS infrastructure. The process of specifying exactly what action a principal can and cannot perform is called the authorization. Authorization is handled in IAM by defining specific privileges in policies and associating these policies with the principals. Well, this is something new here. Okay, in Windows Active Directory, when you create a role, you give the permissions to that, or you assign a pre-configured role like Active Directory administrator, enterprise class administrator, read-only permissions, similar to that, right? But here, uh, the roles, the permissions are actually controlled by a policy document. A policy is a JSON document that fully defines a set of permissions to access and manipulate AWS resources. Policy document contains one or more permissions, with each permission defining these three: affect, service, and resources. Okay, so affect is, it just says you allow it or you deny it. Service is what service, and resource is what resource of the service, right? So these are the three things that you find, three different sections that you find in your JSON document. Don't worry, I'll show you how to create a new document altogether. We've already done part of S3, if you remember. there is a policy generator, and we have used it to generate a policy similar to it, or how to customize the existing policies, how to do the versioning control and all that stuff when we go to the practicals. But yes, when it comes to authorization in AWS, IAM will allow you to do a granular level control using the policy documents called the JSON policy document. Okay, a principal is assigned with a policy, or a principal is assigned with a group, and group is assigned with a policy, either of the things. And we know, as a matter of fact, you also have got a multi-factor authentication. So multi-factor authentication in fact is the same as the session ID or the random key number that we provided in earlier screen. But to say in one liner, your multi-factor authentication it adds an extra layer of protection to your AWS infrastructure. Okay, so I don't have to tell you how it works. It's the same RSA token functionality that you configure it for the first time, and then you will be receiving the one-time passwords kind of thing, and then along with your username and password, you also have to give this one-time password. And this multi-factor authentication can, it can be configured for your root user, or it can also be configured for your IAM user. Apart from apart from the root user, IAM user, I told you that IAM user can be a person, or it can be an application. So to both to the person and to the application, the multi-factor authentication can be enabled. Okay, so and then finally, right, Venkat, we've discussed about, yes, some basic principles about identity and access management. See, it seems that we understand because it's something not new. Well, but in AWS, how the permission conflicts are handled? Okay, because you said the permissions are controlled by the JSON document. Okay, and let's say in the document it is a kind of scripting. You have got 100 lines in there, and what if there are two statements that are contradictory? One statement says allow, the other says deny. What will happen? What will happen? Right? Well, let me answer that. Firstly, initially the requests are denied. Let's say you've created a user, and user is not assigned with any kind of permissions, and if he log in, he cannot control anything. By default, he's denied. Okay, and and let's say you have a policy, and the policy says deny, explicit deny, and you assign that policy to a user, and when a user logged in, he get a deny permissions because you have a explicit deny. And let's say you have a policy, and a policy have got explicit allow. Then when a user logged in, he has the explicit allow in there, so he's allowed to log into it. Until here it is straightforward, right? When a user is created, no permissions assigned, he's denied. When a user is created and a policy with the deny is associated with him, so it is deny. User is created and a policy with the allow is configured to him, it's allowed. But the real problem comes is if there is a combination of deny and allow for the same service, that's when the problem is, right? Let's say you have EC2, and to the EC2, the first statement you make is allow, the second statement that you make is deny. Do you remember something similar to this? The NACL, network access control list, process the rules in order. Upon the first match, it will stop processing the rules. Same way, when you have allow and deny in the same policy, a deny will override everything else. Deny will have the highest privilege. So in spite of you mentioning 10 times allow and one time deny, still your deny will override the allows. Okay, so that is how it works. That's how the permissions are resolved. Your deny has got the highest privilege in your AWS policy document. Let's quickly see IAM in action. So it's console.aws.amazon.com, and I am logging in with the root user now. So this is a root user, and this root user has got super user permissions, the root level permissions, and this user cannot be limited to a particular service as he is a root user. So identity and access management can be found from here by typing IAM, or you can go to security, identity and compliance. You can see IAM over here as well, or you can add that as a shortcut to your quick access menu here, and you can access it. These are the three possibilities. Now, so this is how when you log into the account, the dashboard looks like. You see, out of 5, there are 3 in yellow and 2 are in green, meaning delete your root access key. So I've deleted my root access keys so that the root account cannot be used by somebody else. And then I've applied the policy, the IAM password policy. So this is also in green because I said something complex, uppercase, lowercase, and then a special character, something of that sort, and it is allowed. Fine. Activate multi-factor authentication, create individual IAM users, use groups to assign permissions. It's all yet to be done. Okay, and you can see there are 0 users, 0 groups. Providers, account settings. Basically, this is where you change the password complexity. I said minimum length must be 8. At least 1 uppercase letter, 1 lowercase letter, 1 non-alphabetical letter. Allows users to change their own password. So this is the complexity of password that I've created. If you like anything else, you can do it. Enable password expiration, and you can say every 30 days the password must expire. It's all with you. It's all with you, right? Let me go back to the dashboard and activate multi-factor authentication on root account. I say MFA. Is that a virtual device you wanted to do or a hardware device that you wanted to do? Let me take you to the website so that you get some more insights. A virtual MFA device is actually free. A hardware key is actually, it costs you $13. And when it comes to hardware key, there are different companies who provide it. So based on the company that you engage, the price may vary. You can also use SMS as a multi-factor authentication. That is also possible, and it like the SMS charges will apply to it. Okay. Yeah. And when these are the virtual MFA devices. You have Android app, iPhone, Windows, and BlackBerry. You can go to the Google Authenticator. You can go to Auth 2-factor authentication. Any of these applications, you can download them and you can use it. To my knowledge, one is a paid application. The other is actually a free tool. Seems both are free. Yeah. So both are free tools, free applications. You just can download them, install them in your mobile. Let's say if it is a virtual device, it's an application in your mobile. It's simple. You just scan it using the management application on your mobile. I mean the application that you downloaded here, this one. Using that application, you scan it, you provide authentication code, and that's all you're. So from then, whenever you log into your AWS account, you have to use your username, that is your root username, and the root password, and the multi-factor authentication code. I mean the secret on-time passwords. Okay. And then once that is done, you will see that turns into green. When you create individual user, this turns into green. Same case with the permissions or the groups or the other items. Okay. So let's take it very basic. I'll be going to the users here. Let me create a user and see how he can authenticate himself. Add a user, username. Okay. I wanted to call this guy as a server admin 1. Okay, I just can continue with this user. Or else I can keep add more number of users in one shot. Okay, I can create one user or group of users in one go. The second thing is access type. You just wanted to allow a programmatic access or a management access or both. It's completely with you, like I said. I wanted to allow the management access. We will come back to the programmatic access and I'll show you that as well. But for now, let's see allowing a management console access. Management console is like a human will be going to the management console like this, giving the username and password. When it comes to console password, auto-generated password or a custom password. When you give auto-generated password, a password will be generated by the system here. If I wanted to configure an auto-generated, you can see the password. Let me show password here, and I say PASS. As I type here, you can see it must contain at least 8 characters. It must contain a special character and a digit. Okay, so it is evaluating my password. I say VMware 1. So this the old password that I've used, so it just come up. And you have a uppercase, you have lowercase, you have a numeric number, non-alphabet number also is available, and that's it. Okay, and it is asking require password reset. User must create a new password in the next login. Should that happen or what? Should I enforce the user to change the password or not? Ideally, that's what done in the organization, because this password is known by the administrator. Okay, so this cannot be used. So I am enforcing the user to change the password. Next, review, create. That's all. I've created a user called server admin. I close it, and let me log in with this user into the AWS account. Cool. Okay, I open an incognito window and I say console.aws.amazon.com and be ready to answer my question. I say server admin1 and the password is VMware explanatory login. So we cannot find an account with that email ID. Can anybody tell me why am I not able to log into it?
The user ID, it should be either email ID or mobile number and not the user ID.
Any other guesses?
Venkat, there is a URL called IAM URL. So we need to go with that console URL, I think. It generated like our console ID.
Got it. Yeah, I got it. Thank you. Fantastic. Yeah, you're right. When you go to dashboard, this is basically, this console is to log in with your root account. Okay. To log in with IAM users, when you come to dashboard of IAM, you see IAM user sign in link. This is what it is. Okay. So I copy that link. I put that in the browser. Now you see account ID. This is our account number, AWS account number, and I have to give the username. So now it will take the username and go to my account and see if the user exists, and then it will authenticate. Right? Otherwise, if I just put the user, how will it authenticate? It's my IAM user. It's like Active Directory user in your organization. How can I know a user created in your Active Directory? That way, how Amazon knows the user that I created in my identity and access management console, that should be kept private. AWS cannot access it. So server admin1 sign in. Now it will push us. You must change the password to continue. Right? I've changed. I'm about to change the password and I've logged into the AWS console. Oops. Ooh. We've logged in here. And now you see theory that we've discussed. I said when you do not mention any permissions, you are not allowed to communicate. You're not allowed to control anything. If you see here, it's server admin1. When I click on, I can see all the services over here. Okay, But let's see if I can control any of them. If I can do any action on any of these services. You're not authorized, right? You're not authorized to do anything here. You can see. And I take a launch wizard, and when I kind of finish it, you see, you're not authorized to perform this action. So it's clear that we are not, this particular user is not authorized to do anything. Can anybody tell me why? Why that user is not authorized? We have created the user legitimately in the IAM console, and we have given him login link with account ID, and he logged in. And why, surprisingly, why is he not able to control anything?
Just we created the user ID. Still, we are not provided the rules, permissions.
Fantastic, fantastic. The policy, the permissions are not yet configured. We have just created the user. If I say click and the user, you can see in the permissions doesn't have any permission set. So as per the theory that we've discussed, part of the permission conflict, I said when a user is created and there is no policy assigned to him, there are no permissions assigned to him, by default he is denied to do anything. Okay, so you can come here, you say add permissions. Permissions can be add a user to a group, copy permissions from an existing user, attach the policies to the user. Well, I would like to attach this policy, the administrator access policy, to that guy and review, because we will come adding the group users to a group later. Okay, we will also copy the permissions later. I'm just adding a direct policy. These are all the policies. If I just wanted to create EC2, I can search for EC2 and you can see EC2 full access or whatever it is. I can certainly show you that. I review it, add permissions, boom. You see now, attach the policy document. There is one policy document that is associated with the user. When I go back here, I just refresh it. He's still not. Let me just log out, sign out, and then log in again, for which I need the dashboard. If I say EC2 instance, see now it shows 0 running instances, dedicated hosts, all that information. I can see the health status of it. And I say launch. If I wanted to choose this, you can see it is allowing me, right? I do not wanted to launch an instance now and show you, but I wanted to show you it allows you. Okay, so he has got permissions. He can go to any other service and he can S3. You can list the buckets here, and you can go to VPC. So I can see the VPC information. So he has got the administrative permissions. Fine. When I come back to my root console here, you see that there is only one user created, and your company is kind of setting up the AWS environment now, and you wanted to have proper IAM user hierarchy created or users created properly. So there are multiple teams who log into your AWS environment. I say your application team, your server admin team, and all that stuff. So you better, instead of creating the individual users and configuring permissions to them, it is advised that you create a group. Let's say create a group, and I call it as server admin, and I am assigning EC2 full permissions, and I am creating one more group, development team, and I say EC2 read only access. Okay, create. Now I have two different groups. What I have to do is I have to create the users. I already have the server admin one. So I'm adding this guy to a group. I go to groups here, add user to a group and to the server admin group. Do you think anything wrong here? Do you think anything wrong here? Because for this particular user, we've explicitly given him the permissions of administrator access. This administrator is the administrator of your whole AWS account. And this EC2 administrator is just the admin privileges, the full permissions for your EC2 instance. So we have to detach this policy, direct policy that got attached. I just click over here and I say detach the policy. Now, whatever the policy that was attached to the group got attached to the other user. I go to the user management console here and add one more user. I say admin 2, server admin 3. That way I can add more and more number of users. It is a management console access. I say, and I do not want to change the password here because we have seen how functionally it works. And I wanted to add them to the group called server admin, review, create the user. Right? So close it. Now that I've created three users and 3 of them are part of your server admin group, let me add 3 more users. Developer 1, 2, 3. Also the management console, the custom password. Password must, I'm not asking them to change the password now. And I am making them part of, development team who have got read-only permission, review it, create a user. Because the developer don't need admin privileges on EC2. Got it? And you can certainly see for server admin 1, the last sign in date and time here. Okay, now let's go back and try to log in to it. I just say sign out of this guy. Server admin 2, this time I'm logging in with. The password is accepted so that I got authenticated. And I go to all services, EC2. Yeah, it is a server admin 2, so that you must have the full permissions. So I should be able to deploy an EC2 instance and I can do all that. Okay, so that's fine. If I don't have permissions to list the IAM, that is still fine. Right, I can add storage and all that. So I got permissions to control the EC2 instances. When you have the permissions on EC2, you have permissions on your VPC, auto scaling, CloudWatch, and ELB. So these are the 4 services that are closely integrated with EC2. So you have permissions on all these services also. If you wanted to check, you can go to EC2 VPC. You see VPC, we still able to see it. So permissions that you provision on EC2 are automatically applied to VPC, CloudWatch, which is a monitoring tool, and your auto scaling ELB and VPC. All right. So let me log out of here and let me log in with application team there. But one challenge for me here is every time I have to use this URL, right? And the URL has got something, a random number, I don't like it, right? You can customize it. You say customize and you can create an account alias for it. You can create an account alias for that, say S. Now you find instead of the number, you will see the name. Okay, so that's another thing that you need to understand. So here I say developer 1. So I still can see because I've got so this guy still can see because this guy got read-only permissions. Okay, but the problem here is, you see, there is an elastic IP, and that just got associated with my account. I mean, this is allotted to me but not being used, so there will be a bill on me. If I wanted to release the address, so release, you see, you do not have permissions to do it. So on the other hand side, if the other guy have logged in, the server admin, he must have been able to do it. That is how you can differentiate the read-only permissions and the admin level privileges. Okay, so now that you understand how to create a user, assign directly permissions to him, or how to create a users and create a group, add users to the group and assign permissions directly to the group. This is what we have done so far. Let's try something different. Okay, that is the policies. Let's see how a policy looks like in the first place. This is an administrator policy. It's a JSON document, like I said. And if I wanted to see what is in there in the policy, if I go JSON, this is what it is. A simple statement, the version. This should be the, as of now, this was the version, I mean, the JSON skeleton version it is, right? The syntax version it is. So and then effect, it says allow. Okay, and action, everything is allowed, and resource, everything is allowed. So that's the reason it's called the administrator policy, because you are allowed to do everything on everything. When I go to policies one more time, and maybe if not this, let me say EC2 read-only access JSON document. You can see that effect is allow EC2 describe. Okay, EC2 describe and elastic load balancing describe, and you can see the CloudWatch list matrices, get matrices describe. So you are allowed to work with auto scaling. So you are allowed to work with auto scaling, CloudWatch, load balancer, and the EC2 that is describe, meaning just the list the things. Okay, this is how the read-only policy looks like. Okay, and you've got so there are many policies like you see in here, and these are the three customer managed policies. Now let me tell you, there are two type of policies: AWS managed policies and customer managed policies. AWS managed policies, let's say if tomorrow AWS have done something new with their this particular policy, and if they make any change to this this particular policy document, okay, let's say maybe they have, instead of this star they have done something else, they will be able to push that change to all those many thousands and lakhs of accounts, and in that account the policy that they have, AWS should be able to push that change without our knowledge and our permission. That's the reason it says AWS managed policy, whereas the customer managed policies is managed by us, created by us, and we should be able to do anything that we wanted. Okay, Now let's see how to create a policy here. Okay, I say create a policy. There are three different ways that you can create a policy. Copy an AWS managed policy. So you saw now there were AWS managed policies available. You just copy one of them and customize it, or use policy generator, create a policy, or create your own policy. Create your own policy. These are the three possibilities. We have used the policy generator in S3 to generate a policy, right? It's the same thing. Copy AWS managed policies, or let's say select this and use any of these policies here. Let's say support user is a policy that I wanted to edit, right? This is what the policy document already has. So you say create a policy. When you say this, a policy got created. This is it. Okay, if I wanted to see that, I certainly can scroll down or else filter it by customer managed policies. And here you can see the support user so and so policy. Getting me? Support user, the number you can see is the policy that is just created. I can customize it. So let me delete it. Let's make it very simple. Don't make it very complex. So I wanted to create a policy that will explicitly deny the permissions. So create a policy, create your own policy, and I already copied the policy document here. Effect is allow, easy to describe. I just wanted to take off this easy to describe so that everything on EC2 is allowed, not the describe. And the policy name I say EC2 deny. So I wantedly made some errors here, the syntax errors. Let's see if you realize them or not, or is there a way that we can validate it. This policy is to EC2 permissions, right? Just some description about it, the policy. So before you save it, you just can validate it, validate the policy. Contains syntax errors. For more information, look at the IAM policy document. It says you have a syntax error. So the error is you need to make sure that it is a capital A. And let me validate it one more time. You see, it's done. And I say create policy. But do you find anything wrong with this policy? I said EC2 deny, and the policy that I've actually created within it is allow. Within it is allow. Now I'm let's say user add test user. He's an AWS admin console. Just see. And the policy that I wanted to give him is EC2. Let's say those are customer managed policies. And EC2 deny is a policy that I wanted to allow, which is just created. And review, create, close. So a test user have EC2 deny policy associated with him. I copy the URL. I just sign out of this guy. So let me do this. So now we have logged in with test user, and I'm going to EC2, and I wanted to see that he is allowed. Policy that we have created is actually deny. Okay, so though you give the label as deny, the policy says you actually allow this guy. Okay, so you certainly edit this guy and say deny, and you validate it, and you save it. Okay, go back, and you see partially it start working, right? Ideally, if you just say sign out and sign in again, it will take the full effect. You see, you're not authorized to describe anything. Launch instance. So it is, like I said, it's partially being applied. So to make it perfect, just logged out of it. Test user EC2. You see, now it must be deny. You're not authorized to perform this operation. So that way, the deny is actually started working now. So the user that we have created, the deny is working now. Now, earlier it was allowed, now it is deny. Policy is about what, 3 lines, 4 lines. Let's say it's a policy of 100 lines, and somewhere something you made a change and you forgot about it, and you want that to be restored. How can I back up this policy document and restore it? Well, that worry is already taken care of. If I go to policy versions, there are 2 versions that are automatically created, because when I create version 1, you see it is allowed. When we made the change, that's the deny. All right. So version is already maintained. You can, along with the time, everything. And when you see default, that is currently being applied. If you wanted to apply this, you just say, set as default. Now this is effective, which says allow. That simple it is. That simple it is. Okay. So the policy documents are also automatically being backed up. And on the other day, when you see S3, S3 buckets can be replicated. That's a DR solution. S3 bucket, you can enable the versioning, automatic versioning. That is also kind of a backup. So tomorrow when you complete this training, when you go for interviews, and if interviewer started asking you about the backup or the security, so those are like the service wise. You do not have to install a backup server, configure the backup agent, and then start backing up the policies and all that stuff. That doesn't need it, right? So individual services have the respective backup solutions already configured with it. Now that you saw the policy document, how to create a policy, how to attach a policy, right? How to edit a policy, and then see the versioning, how it happens. Let's try to simulate a situation wherein the conflicts are coming up. Okay, let me open the customer managed, EC2 deny, and currently the deny is active. Sorry, currently the allow is active. So let me make it as a deny the default one. Deny the default. And on the other hand side, the policies, EC2 allow is another policy which has got allow, but allow describe here. I say allow everything, I save it. Okay, now allow says allow clear and deny says deny clear. Let me attach these 2 policies to your user. Test user, add permissions, attach. It's a customer managed policy, allow, EC2 allow, and EC2 deny is already attached. Add permissions, done. You have both the deny and allow added to the user, and he is part of the 0 groups you see here. Okay, now what do you think will happen when I try to log in? What do you think will happen when I try to log in? One policy says allow, the other policy says deny. Yes, theoretically we have discussed that it should actually deny. Let's see the practically how it works. I go to EC2. You see, the deny is overwriting the allow. You're not authorized to see it. You're not even authorized to see the health status of an availability zone, right? So it's clear that when a permission conflict happens, you can certainly go back and look at your policies and identify what actually went wrong, and you can fix it. But as per the theory, the deny will have the highest privilege and it will overwrite the other things. That way you can create the policies. And now, Venkat, it's fantastic. I've got to know how to create a user, group, add permissions, remove, create policy, edit, maintain versions, create, simulate a permission conflict. It's all fine. How can I make the API calls? I have an EC2 instance and I have some important critical data, but I'll be terminating that EC2 instance very soon. And I wanted to dump that data from EC2 to S3. Or else I have a database server and I wanted to back up the database, the MDF files or LDF files onto S3. How can I do it? Or let's say from the external, from my office environment, I've uploaded my data into S3 storage. From that S3 storage, I wanted to import the data into a EC2 instance. How can I do it? Right? Well, make an attempt here and see how it works. Say Amazon EC2. I'm opening the management console with root user. I'm launching an instance here, Amazon Linux. Okay, so select. It's all the same. The IAM that I said we'll discuss today itself. I'll tell you later. Tags, IAM, configure security. It's fine. The default security group itself, everything should be fine. Review, launch, North California, fine. Launch instance. Okay, so let me make API calls from EC2 instance to S3 and see if it works. Go to instances here. Now it is just getting launched. So I copy the IP address. You know how to connect to it, how to generate a PPK file from the PEM. I'm just changing the font. It's 18. Cool. Apply. Boom. Now we are in the machine. From this machine, how should I connect to S3 is a question, right? For which Amazon have developed a command line interface. Okay, so that is AWS CLI. AWS CLI user guide is actually the command line interface documentation that was actually uploaded to the folder that I said, and you have it. Okay, so please refer to it. So the command line reference and the user guide are the two things. You please refer to it. And when I go to user guide, it tells you how to install it on our Linux platform, how to install it on a Windows platform, how to install it on a Mac platform. So for you to install AWS command line utility, you have to install the Python first. Okay, and it's the user interface. I mean user guide. The command line reference is basically to refer to the commands. Okay, so today I wanted to make a S3 calls, right? S3. Let me click over it. So copy it, it copies, moves, it will move, remove. It's the same kind of command line syntax that we use in our Linux or in our Python. So let me show you. Yeah, you see, this is how the syntax looks like. AWS S3. So AWS stands for Amazon the command line interface. S3 is a service that you are doing, and S3 you wanted to copy it or you wanted to remove it, you wanted to ls list it. It's all with you. You can see here cp ls md move. So it's all with you, right? You know what is ls? List the directories, list the files in there. So let me list at least and see what happens. Okay, so I say AWS and S3 ls. Okay, say enter. Unable to locate the credentials. You can configure credentials by running AWS configure. You see, guys, you please understand the thin line between all these terminologies. I said IAM. Sorry. IAM is basically to allow a user or a program to log into AWS services and to control them. Okay, so the IAM user that you have used to log into the AWS account is a test user. That's fine. But here we have used EC2 user, which is the operating system level user, and this user do not have control on S3 bucket over here, right? This is the user that we have logged in. We are trying to use the same user to log into S3 and to, I mean, to at least to control, to do something over there. I'm trying to read the content from S3 bucket, but S3 don't know who the guy is. Who the guy is? S3 never know who the EC2 user is, right? That's reason. At least I mean, it's a you first need to configure the credentials. That's the reason you are not able to connect to S3 with the EC2 user. Instead, you need to configure the credentials by using AWS configure. Okay, so let me do that. When I say AWS configure, it is asking for AWS access key ID. Well, I do not have it. And then it is asking for access secret key ID. I do not have access. Default region, it's anything is fine for me. And default output format is anything else. So simply, I do not have these two inputs, so I'll not be able to make API calls. To prove that, let me do one more time AWS S3 ls. Unable to look at the credentials, for which I have to do something else here. Okay, I go to IAM management console. You go to user, add a user, API user. Okay, I just say API user. This is the programmatic user that I'm creating. So far we have created management console. Now I'm creating the programmatic user. Great. What permissions should I assign him? Well, let's say S3. S3 full permissions, or let's say S3 deny, and so though the names is deny, you can see it is actually allow. Okay, let me edit it. Don't confuse, guys. I'm trying to achieve. I mean, I'm trying to demonstrate multiple things here. So policy says deny. S3 full. Everything on S3 is denied. I save it. Oops, the user is not committed. API user, programmatic access, permissions, attach a policy. It's S3 deny. I'm assigning. Review. Create a user. When the user is created, you see there is an access key ID, which is a 20 20 character, and there is a secret key ID which is a 40 character. This is the only time that you can get this secret key. If you kind of pass on the screen and there is no way that you can get it back, you have to change the key file, that's all. But you will not be able to get that key back again. Okay, now that a user got created, let me go to the same console over here and I say AWS configure. So I have this access key ID. Okay, I paste it, and I have the secret key ID also. Paste it. I don't care about the region. I don't care about the output format. That's fine. I say AWS S3 LS. You see here, I said AWS S3 LS. I'm just trying to list the directories, and it's not actually not returning any value. Okay, so let it go on. See, I'll wait for a minute and see what happens. See what happens. It is not. Okay, it is not able to return anything because you do not have permissions on S3. Let me terminate it, and how can I change the permissions to allow now? Okay, so you just can go here to the API user, and you know, right, how to just remove this, detach the policy that you have, add permissions, the same policy document over here, maybe this time a different policy document that I wanted to, and S3 full permissions, review, add. Okay, I've got it. The user have got S3 full permissions. The same user, the same key file. Something wrong here. Ideally, it should, in the earlier, in the first attempt when we execute this command, it should throw an error that you do not have permissions. And now that we have changed the policy, it should actually throw, I mean, it should list the directories in S3. That is what should happen, ideally, but somehow it is not. Just a second. Well, it's not happening here. No issues. I'll just terminate this instance. I'll just terminate that instance. Don't worry, I'll demonstrate you in detail and then we'll quit. I will not leave it in between. I'm just launching an instance in another region. And I still have my access key and the secret key. And the other important thing is the IAM is global. It's not specific to any particular region or availability zone. That's the public IP address. Authentication, NV file, open up. Right, I say AWS configure, access key ID is this, and the secret key ID is this. The default region is fine for me, is also fine, and I say AWS S3 LS. You see, now it lists the directories that are in S3. So 20 May, 31st Lab, API, and all that stuff. Okay, let me take you to the GUI of the S3 and show you if that is a correct output or not. So you can compare this output here. It's 20 May, 31st Lab, API logs, and all your Elastic Bean Stack directories, and finally Gorilla 24 February logs. Right now, this way you can now create directory using the command line interface. You refer to the AWS command. You refer to the AWS command line reference guide and the user guide. Okay, to create the directories, to copy the data using CP or recursive copy or anything that you wanted to, and you should be good. But from my side, what I can tell you is this way of making API calls is not recommended, right? Because you have this access key and the secret key hard coded into the operating system now, and that is not secure. For which there is a different arrangement called roles. Okay, so when I go to EC2 management console again, EC2 management console. Before that, I go to here. Yeah, you need to go to roles here, right? You should not be storing the credentials. So now you've seen how to create a user, create the keys to him, and hard coded the key file into, I mean, the access key and the secret key into the operating system. Okay, so instead, the recommended way when you are actually making an API calls is to create a role. So create a role. The roles are basically, you saw that roles are, let's say there is an Amazon EC2 role, allows EC2 instances to call AWS services on your behalf. So EC2 instance will make API calls to the other AWS services on our behalf. Similarly, there are many roles that are actually available here. So allows Redshift clusters to call AWS resources on your behalf. So now I wanted to use EC2 to make API calls on my behalf. So I'm using this EC2 role. And which permission, what permission am I allowing is EC2 full access. Next, give a role name. I see S3 full. This is the role name. Description is fine. It's all fine. Create a role. Now the role got created, and to the role, sorry, it's not the policy that I supposed to. It's S3 full is what I supposed to attach the policy, and this EC2 wala, you just detach it. Okay, S3 full is a policy that I've associated with this, and I have a role created called S3 full. Let me go to the EC2 management console, launch the mission, choose any VM that you wanted to, any tier, and I've been telling you that I talk about IAM role later, but today is that, and you have to choose the role that you wanted to use. Okay, so before December 2016, before the reinvent program, the only possible way that you can actually assign a role is while while launching the EC2 instance. Once you launch the EC2 instance, there is no way that you can edit this. You remove it or you add a new one to the EC2 instance. But now the situation, the configuration has changed. You can add a role anytime or you can change a role anytime. Okay. Otherwise, IAM role is to assign a role to a EC2 instance, add storage, and the remaining steps stay as is. IAM role, configure security, group, it's the default. Right, the instance is getting launched here. I just copy SSH authentication, the key file. Okay, appearance, let's say change to 18 or 20. Fine. The network connection refused. That's fine. Since the instance is still getting deployed, please to start the session. Yeah. Now the mission is ready, right? So this is a different mission that you're working on, 2559. This do not have any access key or security key, secret key hard coded into it. I still run AWS S3 ls command and see what happens. Yes, I am able to, because it assume a role and the role has got S3 full permissions, right? If I just go here, right click, image, no settings, yes, attach or replace an IAM role. This feature was not available earlier, right? Now I can just remove it. I can say no role and I can apply. Yes, detach, close. When you detach it, the subsequent API calls, right? S3, unable to locate the credentials. See the message, unable to locate the credentials. If I add the permissions one more time, instance, sorry, the state, S3 full, apply. I full, apply, close. Now the role is assigned to it, this instance one more time, and you can see I am running the same command. I am able to list the directories. All right. So this is how you allow your applications to talk to the other AWS services securely, and this is for sure a certification question, for sure. Okay. So which is a secure way of allowing you allowing your EC2 instances to talk to the other AWS services, storing the key credentials hard coding them or creating a role and assigning it to the server. So they'll give you the options, but this is what it is. Okay, now go to management console here. Yeah, so now if you see, you got to know how to customize this link, how to create a user, create a group, create the policies, edit the policies, identify the versions, add them, create the key file, I mean the security key, access key, secret key, access key, let a user do API calls, and then do a role, create a role, let the EC2 instances make the API calls. This is pretty much about your identity and access management. One thing that we left is integrating the identity providers to your AWS account. It can be a federal account, which is the external account, or it can be on-premises Active Directory of yours. To be honest, when I've done it in my organization, I mean, when they have done it, I wasn't involved, and I'm not sure how to do this. Okay, and I believe this is kind of a one-time activity that your architects will be doing, and this is not something falling into your daily BAU regular activities. Otherwise, rest all we have done. So any questions from this area, from identity and access management? I see Kalyan is asking me a question. When we make any changes to the permissions, we need to relaunch the putty session or reconfigure the user. Well, you have to reconfigure the user, right? You have to reconfigure. You don't have to relaunch the putty. Just relaunch the, reconfigure the user.
All right,
any other questions?
And also, while you explaining about the policies, there is another tab, access advisor. So what is that about?
So that basically to assess you on what kind of policy or privileges should you assign. Maybe we're talking about. Is this what you're talking about?
Yes.
So this basically advise you, let's say if there is a user that is already part of two different policy documents and two different groups, so if there are any possible conflicts as such, so it'll kind of help you, achieve some, it's a kind of intelligence that is actually built in over a period of time when you keep creating more number of policies, more number of users, groups got created, and then you kind of have too many users, groups, policies. It happens that a user who is not part of the allow group is part, and he is also part of the deny group. So that's when it'll advise you on if there are any conflicts as such. But the policy documents and all in organizations, right? Let's take my company. We have a security department separately, the cloud security team. So they will take care of the entire security. They will take care of the user creation, the privileges, the custom roles, and they in turn talk to Amazon. And so there is a lot of groundwork done in that area. Otherwise, it will just advise you on how to proceed. That's all.
Right. Thanks.
Yeah.
And one more question. So, in an organization, if I have about 200 developers or something, I want to import their existing credentials to AWS as a user in a group. So can I do it?
So 200 users in your company, they must be your LDAP user, your Active Directory users, right?
Right.
So you don't have to import all 200 users into AWS environment. Instead, the same user should be able to authenticate into AWS environment by having the identity providers configured. That's what I was saying here.
Right.
Identity providers. Yeah, you just can create a provider. You have to choose. Normally your Active Directory comes under SAML compliance. You have to give the provider details in the metadata document and all that. So it will basically bridge a secure connection between your on-premises Active Directory to the AWS cloud environment. So that should allow you to, without you recreating the users, the same user should be able to authenticate into the cloud and should be able to work on them.
Okay, thanks. And also, while requesting a security token, right? If it is set for 15, you said the minimum is 15 minutes. Can a user keep on generating or does it has only one task?
No, it's a by the normal behavior is that every user logs in will get a separate security key, and that key will
Right.
have a validity lifetime. So yeah,
Right.
every time you
So,
make a request, every time you
okay.
make a request, you will be given a new key, new security token.
Okay, thanks.
So any other questions? No? Yes? Well, I would request you to take the full advantage of the classes. Maybe the better questions from you can make me better and can help me customize the course maybe into a different thing. But yes, I'm always here to help you. Study, practice, and come back to me with more number of questions. That's what I can say. Yeah, Ramesh.
Venkat, how we can reset the password for existing user IDs?
You just can go to the user here, the user, let's say the developer, security credentials. Yeah, console password, it's a managed password. You can disable it, you can keep a custom password, you can give it again one more password.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and when you reset it, you can ask again him to force him to change the password.
Okay, fine.
Yeah. Okay, thanks then. I'll see you on Monday 6 a.m. IST. And one more update is like I'll be starting a batch on Monday 9 p.m. IST. If you have any of your friends, colleagues looking for it, please do let me know. The batch will start from the basics at 9 p.m. IST. So just pass on this information and thank you.